Hello and welcome to a relatively simple video for today. So again, I don't have a lot of time to be making a video. I just want to make sure I'm putting up content relatively frequently onto the channel just to get into that habit, make sure I'm used to the idea of uploading regularly. So I got a request on the last video to show a jump scare, and I remembered that in 5 shows at Wario's there's an option to just go in and select just any of the jump scares to view them. So I thought I'd go ahead and do that, especially since 5 shows at Wario's has much more interesting jump scares than the other games. Most of the others are just static PNG images of the characters moving on screen with a loud noise. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Wario. This is Wario's jump scare right here. I do feel like that one's a little bit basic. Now, Virus Wario's design is fairly good. I think I like the stretched out mouth, but that's really all it's got going for it. When I look closer at the design, it's kind of stretched out, big whited out eyes. Not a whole lot going on, so it's probably not one of the better jump scares. Now, Waluigi I remember being pretty good. Okay. So it's similar, but I like how Waluigi comes down from the top of the screen. It's just an extra little detail, and with those 4 arms for Virus Waluigi here, I think that gives a more spider-like effect, which I find a little bit better, a little more interesting. Okay, now going on to a much better one, let's take a look at Luigi. Luigi is a unique case in this game with Virus Luigi, because Virus Luigi only appears in one of the 5 shows. I think it was Playing with Power, and when he jump scares you, he reaches through the monitor and pulls you in. I think that's a much more effective scare, much more unique. Only thing I'll say against it is it does restrict the creative potential a little bit more. You know, the game's creator, by doing the jump scare like that, could really only have Virus Luigi jump scare in one mini game across all of 5 shows at Wario's. Most of the other characters get to appear in at least 2 or 3 different modes, or at least in multiple mini games in the 5 shows. Virus Luigi only gets Playing with Power. So it is more limiting, but that being said, it was much more creative, so I'll say that's the best one we've seen so far. This, I think, is going to be another really good one. We have Virus Peach. So right away, I would say huge points for the design. The red pupils on the black eyes does kind of remind me a little bit of a .exe type character, which is not great. You know, that's kind of the most blasé, obvious way to take a cartoon character and try to make it scary. It's so overdone that it's not really that effective. Except the realistic human-like fangs on Virus Peach's design. I find that very disturbing, even after having played this game for a while. So for that alone, I have to say that's a pretty good jump scare, but I like the kind of shaking that they added with Virus Peach's jump scare. Let me show it one more time just to demonstrate. That little bit of extra movement during the scare. I do feel like that makes it just a little bit more uncomfortable to watch. So that one's also really good. I don't know if I can really put it above Luigi's, but it's one of my favorite scares in the game for sure. I'm going to save Ashley for later, because I'm an Ashley fan, I have to. Let's take a look at Yoshi. Okay. Actually kind of a lower ranking scare than I think I would have originally put it, thinking about it. I remembered that Yoshi's had a little bit of movement, but he literally just moves one arm a tiny bit. For Virus Yoshi here. Not one of the better showings. Probably better than Wario's. I don't know if I'd put it better than Waluigi, but not as good as the other 2. Okay, Virus Toad is up next. And that one's simple, but I think I actually like what's going on there. first of all, the design is very interesting. They essentially just removed most of the actual character Toad and just left the head, but went with a naturally growing mushrooms pattern. Like, Virus Toad's design just seems to be 3 fungi kind of stuck together with some eyes connected and a little creepy mouth, a little creepy smile. And I do really like that. I think that is a pretty effective redesign for this form. So right away, that's already pretty good. But I like how there's a little eye that opens up inside of the mouth. That's clever. That's something that none of the other virus forms have. None of the other characters in Five Nights at Wario's have. So that's a pretty good one, I'd say. Now, going on to Bowser. Actually, I kind of like that one. The jump scare is very simple, but it gives you this sense of a really huge beast kind of pouncing on you. You know, there's a sense of power behind that scare, and I think that's really good for Bowser. So, that's actually, I'd put that one pretty high if I were to rank these. Okay, I've been putting it off for a while. Let's take a look at Virus Ashley next. That's... I will say, even though normal form Ashley didn't get that much attention in Five Nights at Wario's 3, Virus Ashley and 5 Shows at Wario's got so much love here. And the jump scare they gave her is easily one of the best. Little bit of blood, so I probably should have warned about that. But, I mean, this is a jump scare video. You were probably pretty aware of what you were getting into when you started. But the only downside I can say for that scare is it's really not clear what the threat is. You know, most of these it's very clear that it's supposed to be an antagonistic sort of pose that these characters are striking. You know, they're clearly just going in for the kill. But with Virus Ashley, just kind of popping her head off like that, it's not really clear what she's doing to try and kill the player character, or even if she is at all. It almost kind of feels like that jump scare gives me more of a tragic feeling, which is very strange in this game. But it's clever though, so I like it for that. Okay, I've been putting it off for a while, so here's Mario. So I both like and don't like that one. Partially because there's no animation, it is much more jarring to actually encounter that in-game. You see that, and it'll make you jolt a lot more, because it's sudden, but that makes it much more annoying. Like, it's just very unpleasant every time you get Virus Mario's jump scare. I kind of like the added sound effects. You know, there's almost like a wind effect going on, and that's kind of cool. Makes it a little bit more distinct for Mario, and Mario in this series has always been one of the most unique characters. He usually has some sort of unique gimmick that the others don't have. But design-wise, it's just a Mario image, but with a lot of the pieces kind of scrambled around, and I don't think that works very well. I like the kind of sharp fingers, but otherwise, I think it's one of the weaker redesigns for the virus form. It's one of the most annoying jump scares to get, probably one of the lowest on my list, honestly. Okay, moving on to the normal forms of the characters. Let's go ahead. The game's not responding right now. There we go. Let's go with Donkey Kong. A little bit of blood again, by the way. Oh, no blood, he's just red. Okay. I don't think I like that one. There's some movement to Donkey Kong's head, but it's a little choppy. So, not a big fan. Okay, Mario. A little bit more movement. Mario's always had one of the more interesting designs in the series. So I think that's a good one. Okay, Wario. And I really like that one. The animations are smooth. I like Wario's rotted teeth in that design. It gives the impression that he's been a corpse for a while in this story. And so now his teeth have started to rot away. Good for storytelling. Makes him have a little bit more of a unique design, which is one of the issues that Wario had with the previous games, not really looking that unique, just kind of like regular Wario, but with whited out eyes. So that's pretty good. Waluigi? That one's better than I thought. The hands kind of being stretched out towards the front is a rather intimidating pose, and I like how he comes really far towards the camera for the scare. Luigi. That one's not too great. Luigi's design is one of the stronger ones from all the original entities, but nothing about that pose feels intimidating. It's weird that all his limbs are kind of facing the wrong way as he leaps at the player character. So that might be the weakest out of this set that we've seen so far. Right, here's Peach next. Kind of mediocre. I think Peach's design is okay. The eyes are a little bit creepy here, but nothing about that scare stands out from the pose or the animation in this set. Okay, let's do Daisy next. I'm going to save Entity 01 for last. Daisy's is a very weird one because it's barely animated, but the design for Daisy is interesting. It's barely recognizable as the character. I think this is actually technically a virus form. But I like that there's a theme going on here. These very striking, bulging veins. Most of the characters here don't really have a very clear theme going on, so that's good. It does definitely help her to stand out. I'd probably put her somewhere in the middle of this pack, honestly. And finally, we're going to look at Entity 01's scare. This is very similar to Virus Luigi's scare. He reaches out, grabs the player character, and pulls him towards him. I do think that's very effective. Does limit how many instances Entity 01 can be used in, but I think that's a lot more okay here, because Entity 01 being the main antagonist, main villain of the series, being used less makes a lot more sense. So I think that's... I don't know if it's my favorite jump scare. I think it's one of my favorites. Ashley's scare is up there. It's good, but it's not my favorite. My favorite for the virus characters might actually be Bowser, because it does represent the character well and it does feel intimidating. And my favorite for this set over here, I'm a little surprised I'm saying this, but I'm actually going to say Waluigi. I think that one's pretty good. Let's show that one more time to close us out. And that was my jump scare showcase for 5 shows at Wario's. Thank you for watching.